So, welcome everybody to this Mission Magic session. If you don't know me, I'm Lucy Makara, author, mentor, founder of Mission Magic, Rethink Press, and Book Magic AI. And today we are very lucky to have Anne Whitehouse with us. Dr. Anne Whitehouse is a scientist-turned-alchemist, which is a great description, I think, and pioneer, real genuine pioneer in the energetics of female liberation. So Anne is an author. She is grounded in science with a PhD in metallurgy, and she also has a wealth of research and practice in the forgotten magic of yin. And as a colleague and a client of Anne's, I can testify to her extraordinary insight, innovation, knowledge, and gifts in the energetics of female liberation. Her forthcoming book, UNCAGE, which I can't wait for, will take this to the next level. And you are going to get a taste of that today. So, Anne, I will hand over to you. And I think we're all really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. I just want to say before I start that for the people who are here live, I am in fact giving one-to-one session. So if you would like to go into the draw, say yes in the chat, and Michaela will take note of that, and then we'll do that after the session and get in touch with the winner. Okay, let me go. My computer's been having a slow day, so you will have to bear with me.
Your slide is there. We can see it.
Good, good, good. Excellent. Okay. So, Uncage. What a title. Break the invisible spell of patriarchy and step into unshakable confidence and radical freedom. So here's a fact. Nobody alive today has experienced their true power. Women's power is suppressed. Men's power is distorted. And it's not because of any personal failing, it's because we are all locked inside invisible cages. We are unable to be our true selves, and we're struggling to escape every single day without realizing it. And it causes us huge problems, and it's absolutely exhausting. And the culprit is patriarchy. Patriarchy has fractured power itself. And that's quite a statement, but we'll come back to that in a little while. So today you will discover the invisible limits that have bound us for generations, why your power is draining and how to stop it, and how to reclaim the power that patriarchy stole and restore your true magic and freedom. So I'm Dr. Anne Whitehouse, patriarchy detox expert, power alchemist, priestess of the sacred feminine. I'm a subconscious mind architect and the author of Pull Back Your Power. To give you a little bit of background, if you don't know me, I started off as a high-powered academic, Jesus College, Cambridge, PhD, postdoc, and then at the age of 26, I became a lecturer in mechanics of materials at Leicester University Engineering Department. Now, although I could do the job absolutely fine in that toxic environment, which was very male-dominated, you can imagine how that was, what I found was that my confidence evaporated and my stress went off the scale. And in 6 short years, I went into a burnout. I had chronic fatigue syndrome and I lost my scientific career. But that experience made me move in a completely different direction in my life, because literally I wanted to get my life back and I was willing to try anything. And that took me very quickly into the realms of the subconscious. Like, why had I reacted that way? Why had it really destroyed my health being in that environment? I learned how to literally measure what the subconscious believes as opposed to what we consciously think. What I found was astonishing. That was that although consciously, of course, I had absolute faith in my ability to do the job and my right to have that career, my subconscious was on a completely different page. It believed that I was forbidden from being a scientist, forbidden from having a PhD, forbidden from having authority over men, because of course all my students were men. And moreover, that I was actually going to be punished by being put to death for being in that forbidden male career. And I mean, with that under the surface, it makes perfect sense why my stress had been so high. And I even used to say to people, it felt as if I was going to my execution just going into work. So I learned to change this programming. I got my health back. And before I knew where I was, I had a thriving empowerment, or I called it life alchemy practice. And all these women were coming to me from so many different professions, but they were experiencing the same kind of problems on the top level of their life. And what I found was that they all had the same programming underneath. And this is deeply significant because when it's one person, it's interesting, okay? But when it's everybody, that means it's systemic. That means there's a connection. And that proved that we were actually all running the same subconscious programming. And I thought that at that point that was my mission, that was my life to sort this out. But then in 2014, my young daughter Rebecca died suddenly at the age of 7. And as you can imagine, that just shattered everything. I couldn't work for a year. And none of the modalities and techniques and things that I had, nothing was touching the place that I was in, nothing at all. And I was so desperate that I began to experiment and push the boundaries of what could be done. And I came to see that my power wasn't a belief in me being powerful or empowered. My power was actually an energetic thing, and that had literally fractured, it shattered by that trauma. So I learnt how to rebuild the energetics of my power so that I could hold it again in my body, in my energy field. And I did that. Not only did I come through that trauma, but I made so many discoveries, and a big picture began to form of the top level of our lives, these power mechanisms and all the subconscious belief and all of that. And basically, this is my life's work. My first book, Pull Back Your Power, that was published in 2019. And as Lucy said, I'm now working on the second one, UNCAGE. And today, what I'm going to share with you is based on 25 years of my own work with hundreds of people. This is not speculation. This is data, right? But it's not coaching. It's not strategy. We're going to be unraveling the subconscious mind, working with the subtle energies of power dynamics, and it's about reprogramming the group consciousness. Now, you may find that something of what I say challenges some of your assumptions about the world, especially if you've only really looked at the world in 3 dimensions before. So if this is you and this is new, I just invite you to be curious and open to these new ideas. Okay, so on with the main thing. The culprit is patriarchy. But what is patriarchy? There's lots of misconceptions and misunderstandings about this because it isn't what you think. Firstly, patriarchy does not mean men. Also, patriarchy isn't visible misogyny, sexism, and inequality. Those things are a few of the symptoms of patriarchy, but it's not patriarchy itself. Also, it's not the so-called internalized patriarchy where women uphold patriarchal attitudes and suppress other women. What I'm talking about is far deeper and far more widespread. Patriarchy is shared subconscious programming. So if you imagine the operating system of your computer, it goes on under the surface, you aren't aware of it, it just does its thing in the background. Now, if you imagine that your computer is networked to a load of other computers, and they're all running the same operating system, that's what it's like. So this patriarchal operating system has been running everything for about 3,000 years. It's all we've ever known. And what it does is it's got deep foundational rules, kind of right at the base level of our minds, upon which everything else is based. And it's inside everyone, no exceptions. Okay, I haven't tested everyone in the whole world, but I've worked with hundreds of people over decades, and I have never found anyone that did not have this in their subconscious mind. So it's in me, it's in you, It's in your neighbors, it's in your colleagues, it's in the worst misogynist, it's in the radical feminist, it's in the Dalai Lama, it's in everyone. The way to think about patriarchy is like gravity. Everything in our world assumes gravity. Our bodies are designed to cope with it. Everything we design structurally is designed to include gravity. We don't have to kind of think about it. Oh yes, and I've got to put gravity in there. It's so normal. We can't imagine a world without it. It's so normal that it's invisible. It's just there. It's everything. It's our world. This is what it's really like. Okay, so this programming causes many, many problems, and most of which on the face of it, have nothing whatsoever to do with patriarchy. And that is the problem, because it means that we are putting our efforts to help ourselves in the wrong place. So here are some examples of problems that women have to often deal with. And the root is actually this patriarchal programming. So we have things like feeling not good enough, being scared of being too much, holding back, money blocks, imposter syndrome, low confidence, not speaking up, inner limits and glass ceilings, visibility fears, being domineering to other women, and more that I couldn't fit on here. In men, slightly different. Again, not feeling good enough, but depression and mental health problems very much underpinned by patriarchy. Imposter syndrome, high stress, anxiety, stifled emotions, loneliness, toxic masculinity, money blocks, and again, more things that I couldn't fit on. Huge problems. Okay, so where has this programming come from and what is it? So patriarchy started around 3,000 years ago with the suppression of the sacred feminine. Before this time, women had been honoured as magical portals of life. The priestesses held the power of the Great Mother, the feminine was revered, but then it was suppressed, and this happened all over the world. Patriarchal religion took over from goddess worship, and alongside this process, women were deprived of rights and freedoms. And women's bodies, which are really the source of our power, instead of those being considered as magical and sacred, they became shamed, and that separated us from our power. And women were forced into servitude roles. So in a nutshell, patriarchy did an excellent job of negating the feminine in all its forms. What it did was it either deleted it altogether or labelled it as inferior, shameful, dirty, forbidden, ridiculous, or evil. And we still see this all over the place in the world today. This is our heritage. We've moved on to some degree, but it's our legacy that's still living in our subconscious minds. And this history, that's the basis of this programming that we're all still holding. Okay, so now think about the layers of your mind, like a house of cards. Right at the bottom, we've got these subconscious rules. We are completely unaware of them, but they are the foundation upon which everything else is built. Then we've got various other layers building on that, which I'll talk about later. And then right at the top, we have the final layer, that is our conscious life. So that contains our thoughts, our feelings, the way we react to things, what we believe about the world. So let's look at what these subconscious rules actually are. Now, I've spent a long time analysing what's really in this patriarchal operating system, and there are 5 key rules. I'm just going to mention a couple of them today. The first one will be no surprise whatsoever. Male is superior to female. But this is way more and has enormous consequences beyond saying men are more important than women. It means that everything masculine must be exalted, everything feminine must be negated, crushed, and devalued. And one of the things which leads on from this is the 5th rule of patriarchy. Men should be as masculine as possible, women should be as subservient as possible, as you see from this very evocative little cartoon here. And obviously, these rigid definitions are a million miles away from who we really are as people, as individuals, right? A million miles away. But this is what's really programmed in on these very deep levels. So all of that creates many hidden limits and subconscious rules, and they undermine women and they undermine men too. So for example, this is how the subconscious reasoning might go. And your subconscious, it doesn't think, is this right? Is this justified? Do I believe this is appropriate? It's not like that. It's literally like a computer. This is the rule, this, therefore that. It's simple as that. So the subconscious might say, looking at rule number 1, male is superior to female in all things. Then it looks at me, oh, I'm female, I'm a woman. Therefore, because of rule 1, I must defer to men. Therefore, my career is not as important as my husband's. Therefore, I'm not allowed in this male default career, etc., etc. So that's what my subconscious was actually doing when I was in my engineering career. Another way of looking at your subconscious is to think of it like an iceberg. You've got this tiny bit above the surface that's conscious you with all your rights and abilities, and then everything else under the water, much bigger, really dominating, that is completely full of this patriarchal program. What we need for our lives is up-to-date software, and what we've got is some clunking old machine that lives in a museum. That's what we're dealing with. And I can't emphasize this strongly enough. Your subconscious programming is usually the exact opposite to what you consciously believe. And that means that you are most likely disobeying those hidden rules every single day. So when you disobey your own subconscious rules, your mind believes you're in danger, because another rule of patriarchy is you have to fit in to be safe. So what it does, it panics, it tries to save you by dragging you back into obedience. So here's how you can imagine the situation. Your conscious and your subconscious, it's all your mind, so it's all connected, right? And it's like an elastic band. The subconscious is anchored in those patriarchal beliefs, patriarchal programming. It's not going anywhere. This has been there for 3,000 years, right? Your conscious mind is moving forwards. You're growing, you're expanding. Maybe you are fulfilling your mission. Maybe you are growing your business. Maybe you are performing on stage. You are moving forwards and evolving and moving further and further away from those limiting beliefs. So initially, you can move no problem, but it gets to a point where you are stretching the band. You're stretching the band. And then it gets to the point where you can't go any further. And the elastic band is absolutely full of stress. And you are putting all your energy into staying still. And if you relax, you're just going to get pulled back. So this is what's happening to us on the mental level. We are pulling away so far from what this deep programming is that we get to a point where we simply can't go any further. And that literally defines a limit. That's the edge of our cage. Okay, so how has patriarchy fractured power? Firstly, let's redefine power. I'm not talking about a simple belief in your empowerment. Power is your energetic ability to create and sustain change in the world. So in your house of cards, that's your mind, we've gone up from this very deep programming and into these kind of intermediate levels where your mind is reacting to what it thinks you're doing and deciding whether or not you have enough energy to hold power, etc., etc. So this is what we're talking about now, this intermediate area. So imagine that you've got a really powerful car, say a Ferrari, but you've got no fuel in the tank. You've got huge potential for power in that engine, but without fuel, you are going nowhere. And our power is just like that. Think of it like a machine. We all have the potential for great power, but to use our power, we must have the fuel. And patriarchy has deprived us of the fuel that we need. So let's go deeper into the true nature of personal power. Now, most people think that power is a thing that you either have or you don't. This is incorrect. Power, like everything else, has both a yang and yin quality. So the yang is the directional, the action, the male. Think of fire. The yin is the receptive energy, ebb and flow, it's states of being. It's the female. Think of the ocean. Now, these are the two complementary modes of power. We need both, and we need them to be in harmony and balance. They flow into each other. They're like two sides of the coin. You must have both to have balance, to have harmony, to have healthy power. One isn't better than the other. It's simply that they are complementary energies. Now, everyone naturally has both yang and yin within them, but patriarchy said male is superior to female. So that yin aspect of power has been outlawed and erased. So what we end up with is intrinsically unbalanced yang quality to power. And this sabotages everyone because the core of our power is now completely unhealthy. This yang energy by itself, it's like a bull in a china shop. So patriarchy caused a fundamental fracture at the core of our power. And the whole of our modern history is founded on that fractured power. And just one look at the world around us, you can see that this is indeed the case. So we can relate that to the suppression of women's power. So women's energy is naturally cyclic. We all know this. It goes with the moon, and you can see from the moon cycle here, we've got some parts of the cycle that are very young, some that are very yin, some that are combinations. And this is healthy female power, expressing all different ratios of different energies, and that then manifests in different power archetypes. So before patriarchy, this was open to women. And you can see that these are wonderful things. You know, the alchemist, the priestess, the great mother, the warrior, the healer, the seer, the wise woman, all fantastic, all healthy. And we would all embody, we wouldn't be stuck in one, we'd be going all over the place with our natural cyclic energy. Okay, then patriarchy comes along. This is banned. You can't have that yin power anymore. That's inferior, that's dirty, that's forbidden. After patriarchy, we were disconnected from our bodies, disempowered, and locked into archetypes of servitude, which they're not power archetypes at all, they are disempowered archetypes. And we've got either what I call the sexless mother, which is kind of a domestic servant figure, or we have the prostitute concubine, where we have women's bodies are on the one side shameful and dirty, but at the same time they are just for the pleasure of men. So what kind of choice is this? And you see that these two archetypes are really all women were given for many centuries. And you can see this in Christianity. We have the Virgin Mary, sexless mother, and then we have Mary Magdalene, prostitute concubine. And the interesting thing is that nowhere in the New Testament does it say Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. That was in fact imposed later in order to disempower her by patriarchy. Okay, so then we move into the 20th century and the world does open up for women. We are allowed out into the workplace, out into the halls of power, but we're not allowed in our own power with that beautiful yin energy and balance. What patriarchy said is, yes, you're allowed in, but only if you just take on this unbalanced yang energy. And that is very toxic. It's toxic to everyone, but it's particularly toxic to women because it goes against our natural cyclic energy. So here's our choice. This is what's been, it's our inheritance. This is what is deep in our psyches. This is what we've been trying to squeeze ourselves into for centuries. Right, so let's go into the power machinery before and after patriarchy and see what that looks like. So before patriarchy, we have yin and yang balanced. So basically our fuel tank was full, giving us radiant, healthy power. And you can see I've got spiraling power here, all kinds of colors. So anything could be expressed through this. Everyone free to express whatever their unique signature energy was. Patriarchy comes along and says, no more yin, that's banned. So that yin is outlawed. the fuel tank immediately is halved, and what we have in it is no longer healthy power, it is this unbalanced, toxic yang energy. Now, just to emphasize, yang energy is not bad, but it has to be balanced with the yin. You have to have both in balance to have it healthy. So this is what patriarchy did for men. It goes from beautiful, balanced, radiant energy to depleted energy with completely unbalanced, unhealthy, yang energy. So now let's consider how the cages fit in. Remember, with the cages, you are stretching yourself away from your subconscious programming until you get stuck in an enormous inner conflict. Subconscious thinks, oh my goodness, she's breaking the rules. She's going to be put to death for this. Each time we do that, each time we break a subconscious rule, it signals danger. Subconscious triggers fight or flight. More energy drains from our power. And that's how we have been locked in these cages for so long. Okay, so that was men. What about women? So again, after patriarchy, yin is outlawed, so we've only got half the tank. We've got this unbalanced yang energy, which is really unhealthy for women. But for women, our power is further drained because patriarchy isn't only taking that part of energy away from us, it's also trying to press us all together because we are labeled as yin, we are labeled as the female. It doesn't matter that we naturally have a whole combination of energies, this is all about labels. So we have these factors down here. It's further drained by the male default, by oppression, by law, by precedent, by the witch wound. I adore this subject. And if you're really interested, this is all in my first book, Pull Back Your Power. But I'm just going to mention one factor of this, and that is the witch wound. So this is the shared trauma, the shared historical trauma of powerful women being persecuted and executed. And this happened all over the world for many centuries, not just the kind of famous witch burning times. This is much bigger than that. And it's so big that there's a group conscious trauma. We're holding it in our ancestry, we're holding it in our DNA, in our epigenetics. So here's the thing, each time we try to step into our full power and be seen to be powerful, this old trauma triggers. And it tells us if we step into that full power, it's going to lead to our death. We're going to be burnt at the stake again. So we pull back. And how many times have you seen women do that? They want to launch their business or their website and they come to the point of putting it out there and then, oh, can't do it. That visibility terror that we have, this is about the witch wound. And this is how patriarchy has kept us separated from our true power for millennia. And it's really clever thing to have done because it's locked in by fear and by trauma. So putting all that together, again, before patriarchy, wonderful radiant power, we can have all the combinations we want. Afterwards, all the yin has gone anyway, and because of all of this suppression of women, more and more and more energy has drained out of the tank, leaving us hardly anything, and it's the toxic energy as well. That's what we've got. Okay, so patriarchal agenda is to exalt the yang and suppress the yin. So it's banned yin qualities for men. That's really, really damaging. But on top of that, for women, it suppresses us altogether because we have female labeled bodies. Plus, we've got generations of law, oppression, violation, precedent, and trauma that's draining women's power further. So this is the fuel that patriarchy has given us to live our lives with. And you can see this is not ideal at all. We are only ever going to be struggling and compensating and trying to make do with energy like this. So then we need to add on the effect of trauma on our power. So if you are someone who has been through rape or assault, been through a controlling relationship, a patriarchal family, childhood trauma, any kind of abuse, ancestral trauma, or indeed past life trauma, a lot of us are holding that, then that has the effect of further draining your power. Because a traumatic experience sits in the subconscious and gets frozen there, and it can be frozen for decades, absolute decades. And the frozen experiences, they literally act as power drains. It magnifies all of the patriarchal stuff I'm talking about, and your power drains out like water down a plug hole. So if this is you, then this is something I can really help you with, because unfreezing and healing traumatic experiences and rebuilding that power is one of my specialities. Because this is what I discovered through having lost my daughter. I was doing so much for my mission, for my work, and I was literally invisible. I was making no impact in the field at all. And then I realized that I discovered the fact that I couldn't hold power anymore, because that was just all frozen by the trauma. And so I was invisible in the field. And when I learned to unfreeze and rebuild my energy field to hold power after the trauma, then everything changed. So if this is you, I can definitely help you with this. So adding on personal trauma, it drains us further. So the more trauma you have in your system, the harder it is to access your power. So you can be going through life with all the abilities in the world, all the motivation, the most amazing love, and fantastic motivation. But if you've had all of this going on, and you probably have, you've got no energy to fuel your power. So you're not going to have any impact on the field. And when you haven't got your power, your body feels intrinsically unsafe. So that further locks you into fight or flight, and it's a vicious spiral. So that's when all of these other symptoms I'm talking about, that's when all that comes into. Right then. So what we have are men's and women's cages. They are two very different cages that we are locked into. Some people would say, and believe me, I've heard this, you have to treat men and women alike nowadays, and there's no such thing as male and female power. This is absolutely incorrect. Totally incorrect. As soon as you look beneath the surface into what's going on in the subconscious, you can see that it's completely different for men and women. Why? Because patriarchy treats you differently depending on whether it labels you as a man or a woman. And remember, this is going on under the surface of your own mind, everyone else's mind. It's made the label, and it's the programming is running. So to gain true freedom, we've got to understand where we're starting from. And we are living in a world absolutely steeped in patriarchy. Remember, patriarchy is like gravity. It just is. So you can imagine it like this. You have two babies. And as they're born, they're both going to be kind of shining like little light bulbs of amazing power. But immediately, they're going to have a label put on them, boy or girl. As soon as they leave the womb, they are going to get steeped in that patriarchal programming from everyone around them, from their own subconscious. And that programming is going to tell them what you can do, what you can't do, what you have to be, what you mustn't be, what the limit on this is, what the limit on that is. And it's busy building this energetic cage. Each one of those limits is a little bit of elastic band in one direction or another. So as you grow up, you get squeezed through this patriarchal filter in the subconscious. And by the time you come out in adulthood, you are going to be locked into either the man's cage or the woman's cage. So let's look at these. So we have the man's cage. It's trying to stretch him into one particular shape, which is not a nice shape. And it looks very uncomfortable. The women's cage, completely different. The women's cage is a cage of limitation. It's squashing her because the patriarchal programming is telling her you've got to be silent, you've got to be invisible, you've got to be in the background, you've got to be as little as possible. So this is what we are in. This is what we're born into. So when we try to escape our cages, we reach the limit on what we're doing. Power drains further, more fight or flight, less safe, and we're just locked more and more and more firmly. We can't undo this just by wishful thinking. If we could, then we would have this beautiful post-patriarchal world now, and all these problems would have evaporated, but that's not what we've got, is it? But we can intentionally unlock this when we know how. So back to our house of cards. On the bottom layer, we've got all those patriarchal rules, and we are breaking them every single day just by existing in our lives. We then have the layers of our mind, which links to our physiology, to our hormones, to everything, which are built upon those bottom rules. And because we're breaking the rules, we keep on triggering fight, flight, freeze, power keeps draining. So we have less and less impact in the field. We feel less and less safe, vicious spiral going on here. Then right at the very top, our lives, what we've got is stress, conflict, and limits. And we are trying to fix those things at the top, maybe by blaming ourselves, blaming society, blaming our partner. But that's never going to be the solution. The solution is all this stuff underneath. So when you feel all of these symptoms, or any of them, it's telling you one thing and one thing only. It means your cage has triggered. Nobody alive has experienced their true power because the world has erased yin. We've all got broken power. Nobody alive has experienced life free of the patriarchal cages we've inherited. Absolutely nobody. Until we've unlocked the cages and reclaimed our yin, you're never going to know what it is to be truly free. You're not going to know what your own natural shape is. You're not going to know what your unique power feels like and what your gifts are because you haven't had that opportunity yet. Right. So what is it that we've lost? Do we even know? Everything I've done so far today has been totally yang. Analysis, logic, problem, solution, action. It feels safe, it feels normal, it feels credible, because this is how we are brought up. This is what our world tells us is the way, right? Totally yang. So what even is yin power? Have we any clue? So we're going to look at that now. Do you feel it's changing gear? Restoring that yin power is going against every single little bit of conditioning we've got. And it's disobeying our deepest subconscious programming. And because it's doing that, it is going to trigger us. Our subconscious is going to say straight away, that's dangerous, that's forbidden. But when we begin to heal that power fracture within ourselves, everything changes. All of these problems, when we begin to heal that power fracture, bring the yin back in, they begin to dissolve. But that's only the start. Just as if we've been held underwater like a cork by patriarchy, when we take that off, we kind of bounce back up to our natural level, and those natural power archetypes of balanced embodied power, they are naturally restored. And that's when our magical gifts begin to reassert themselves and blossom. And that means, yes, psychic gifts, healing abilities, alchemical connection with the field, magical abilities, experience of different planes and dimensions and higher consciousness. So how does that make you feel, those words? You know, alchemy, magic, psychic. So part of you might think, oh yeah, I love that. But is there another part of you that is resistant? It's part of your brain saying, what's she talking about? This is new age rubbish. This is woo. It's not credible. That part of your brain, that's your patriarchal cage speaking. Because what it wants you to do is to keep suppressing that yin power by negating it, ridiculing it, before you can even experience it. So I'll tell you how I experienced it. Before, I was, oh my goodness, high stress, anxiety. I was a complete chameleon. I never spoke up. I was in fear a lot of the time. I didn't let the fear win. I would always push through the fear, but it was deeply unpleasant. I struggled with confidence. Afterwards, way more confidence. I do speak up. The most amazing thing is being able to be myself, more energy, more resilience, more clarity. Fantastic. But this is kind of mundane stuff. So what about the gifts? Before, well, I was always being very, very intellectual, logical, analytical, musical. That was me before. Afterwards, well, yep, clairsentient, clairvoyant, clairaudience. I can read the field. I can tune into layers of subconscious energy and change that programming of my mind. I can channel higher consciousness. I can connect to past lives and heal them. I can release ancestral patterns and traumas. I can transform the group consciousness, change power dynamics, so much more, so much more. When I was a little girl, I knew that I should be able to do, I called magic. And I would sit there and think, and I think I could almost do it, but I just couldn't quite remember. And then, of course, I all got completely shut down by my education and being a scientist. And there I am, working on electron microscopes and teaching metallurgy to mechanical engineers. But then, through this journey, I've come full circle. And what I can actually do now that feels like, well, completely normal, just like using my right hand, is far more than I ever even imagined when I was a little girl, thinking that I was magic. But this isn't in my LinkedIn profile, is it? Why not? Because part of me that was still in the cage was saying, my God, if I actually am open about this, I'm going to be ridiculed. I'm going to be put to death. I'm going to lose all my credibility. That's patriarchy. Patriarchy suppressing my unique power, my unique energy. But this is the work. This is what we need to do. Reclaiming your yin power, it aligns you with your higher self. It frees you from the patriarchal cages and it allows your gifts to flourish. Many benefits come. Your ability to receive, you become more magnetic, calmer, more energy, happier, confident. It's great. And it opens the door to your ancestral magical powers, whatever they may be. And also, wisdom from your past lives, if you choose to go in that direction. So the question is, are you ready to open your cage? Many people are at this point ready. I could not have given this talk 30 years ago. People wouldn't have been able to hear me at all, but times have changed. Things are shifting. So a bit of a litmus test here. If you are at the point where your higher self is saying, yes, please get out of the cage, if you are feeling high stress no matter what you do, frustration that you're not shining like you want to, a feeling of being off track, constantly self-censoring your life and what you're doing and saying to fit in, and it drives you mad, but you keep on doing it. A feeling that you have a mission or like a deep exhaustion. You might also feel it as a yearning, a sense that something is missing, or a feeling of anticipation, or a deep kind of connection with your ancestral past. So how do we free ourselves? First thing, we need to update that pesky subconscious operating system. Get rid of those rules of patriarchy. Now, that does require deep subconscious reprogramming. You can't just do it by wanting to. But I've got a gift for you that's going to start that process. It's what I call my visibility power activation. It's an audio file, which you'll get the link to. And that helps you release ancestral programming of patriarchy. It also helps release witch wound trauma, helps you magnify your signature energy to get out of that chameleon thing. So that this in itself is very powerful. Then, of course, the big work is to restore your yin power. This is a journey. It's not a quick fix because you are going to have to undo 3,000 years of heritage. It's not going to be easy, but it is absolutely possible. So what I've got for you now is a very, very quick taster. And just by doing that, that's going to plant a seed, because the yin power, it's being completely blocked from us, but it's so intrinsic to who we are that just like a taste of it is a remembering. And then I have an invitation for you. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I call yin power breathing. So when you do this, it's going to take you out of that very kind of mega yang energy. So here's how you do it. You breathe in, out, and then hold on the out breath, kind of the space between before you breathe in again for a count of 3. So it's in, out, and then 1, 2, 3, in, out, 1, 2, 3. And in that, while you're between the breaths, you're connecting to the space, like the sacred space. It's a kind of like a sacred pause. And the more you do that, you get connected to like an empty presence of consciousness. And that is the being state of the yin energy. So I'm just going to talk you through that now. So if you'd like to just close your eyes, and if you just breathe in, out, and then 1, 2, 3, in, out, 1, 2, 3. So just do that for a few more times. And as we do that, I'm just showing your subconscious what we're doing and saying, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this? This is part of who you are. This is your heritage. This is so beneficial. So when you do that and you begin to become aware of that sacred pause between the breaths, that is, you're going to need to do the counting less and less, and you can just be in that energy. And the more you're in that energy, you'll find your stress goes down, your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure will go down, but also all of those unpleasant symptoms, that's also just going to begin to reduce. So if you're feeling any of these things, if you're feeling imposter syndrome, if you're feeling visibility fear, if you're feeling not good enough, just take a couple of minutes and do that breathing. And in fact, I've also got a recording a longer recording to share with you on that as well. And what you'll find is that it's going to begin to loosen the cage just enough that you're going to feel better. Okay, so an invitation for you. People have been asking me to teach this for years, absolute years. And I've finally decided that now is the time. So I will, in the autumn, be bringing a small group of women together, and I'm going to teach this. It's be starting at the beginning, but really doing this Yin Power Alchemy. So those who join me will be entering the mystery. We're going to be using subtle energies, distance power techniques, creating in the quantum field, playing with high vibrational energies of consciousness, restoring those beautiful embodied power archetypes that patriarchy stole from us. It's the void. That's the sacred feminine, the cauldron of alchemy. Now, I expect big shifts in confidence, power, well-being, and much more for anybody who goes on this path. But, and here's the thing, there can be no guaranteed specific results. I have no idea what might manifest for you, because that's the nature of the sacred feminine. And again, by bringing this concept, your mind is going to say, oh, okay, I remember that's in my DNA, that's in my heritage. So the yang way, the patriarchy way says, here's the problem, that's the goal, and I'm going to take step 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm there. Push, 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 yang energy. That's not what we're going to do. What we're taking is this seed of this yin power that's been suppressed for so long. And we're planting that seed into the void. And then we are providing the fertile space for it to grow. And that seed's going to grow, say, into a beautiful rose. But you don't know where the branches are going to go. You don't know what color the rose is going to be. You don't know the configuration of the rose, but you know that it's going to be beautiful. So that is the sacred feminine. That's what we're going to be doing. Is this for you? I'm not going to give you a big list of things. If it's for you, you're just going to know. You'll feel it inside. like an excitement of remembering it. Oh my God, I've got to have this. If it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's fine. If you would like to apply, if you'd like to be one of this first group, then just message me and I'll tell you what to do next. So you now know the key that will give you a power and a freedom that you have never experienced before. We've got to uncage ourselves so that women can expand their power without limits and that men can harmonize their power and be the shape that is them. We've got to reclaim our yin power to heal that deep fracture that patriarchy created like 3,000 years ago. There's no other way. Only then can we all shine in our unique power. Only then are we going to know what our unique power really looks like. And that's when we're going to experience true freedom to be ourselves. So let's break the spell of patriarchy once and for all. And if you'd like to join the waiting list for my next book, UNCAGE, Break the Invisible Spell of Patriarchy, I'll give you the link for that too.
Wow, thank you, Anne. That was fantastic. That was really amazing. I think everybody's when you look in the chat later, you'll see that people have really responded to that. So are you up for taking any questions now?
Definitely. So
Okay.
I'll just say that all the links, what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to put them all into a PDF, and we're just going to circulate that PDF. It's so much easier than trying to get it out of the chat. So don't worry
Yeah.
about copying. You're just
Okay.
going to get all that anyway.
That's great because one of the
Yeah,
links didn't actually work. So yeah, that would be good if we could all get that. That would be fantastic. So who would like to ask Anne a question? Can you either put your hand up physically or do the zoomy little hand, and we'll go round. Okay, Maxine, and then Hilda. So Maxine first. Do unmute
Right.
yourself and ask.
And thank you so much for a wonderful session. And I know that
thank you.
um, we talked a little bit about what you do, but this is so enlightening. My question is, um, can pain in the body be rooted in the subconscious patriarchal?
Yes, what a
Yes.
fantastic question. It absolutely can, and that is one of the things that I've been working on. So here's what we have. We have women who are um, really uh, ambitious, high achievers very often. And so we are expanding into the world and we are taking up more space and we are making our voices heard, but we haven't got this power foundation supporting us underneath. So like we're running on empty and we're working on kind of pure grit, adrenaline force instead of having properly supported power. So what happens is that is it's very unsafe because your mind says, oh my goodness, your body doesn't have the energy to sustain this at all, just can't sustain it. And what I found is that when we kind of reach the limits of literally taking up space, it really is a kind of a space visibility thing that we kind of start suppressing ourselves. We're kind of pushing ourselves back in to try and get us back in the box, as it were. And that absolutely causes physical pain. And I've gone through a lot of that myself. And there's a link between all kinds of pain, but particularly things like fibromyalgia and joint pain and all of that, and headaches and if IBS pain, all of this. When I test it subconsciously, it's nearly always about suppressing our own power because consciously we've gone too far and our bodies and our subconscious are saying this is just not safe. Either you're just going to die because you're draining your life force, or you're going to be put to death and punished, or a combination of both. So yes, there's an
Yeah,
absolute correlation between the two.
thank you. I find
That's
that.
a great question, Maxine. Hilda, what would you like to ask Anne?
Thanks very much, Anne. I've heard part of that presentation before, and I see that it's evolved and moved on.
Yeah, this is the next level. This is the next
Yeah,
level.
And I don't know if this is a question for now, or whether it's a message really, but when you were talking about all the abilities you'd have when you stepped into your Yin power, the question came up for me, how is it different from what you would be able to do, for example, if you had trained as a shamanic healer, or if you'd done meditation? Because I've done both of those, and I can already do quite a lot of the things that you described. So
again, excellent questions. So when you do those trainings, that is in some degree bringing it back. So I'd also done loads of trainings, so many that I have lost count of them all, and was getting abilities through all of those. But at the same time, every time I was expanding those abilities, more sabotage was coming up, and blocks and limits, and it was exhaustion because of all of this. And it's when you go right for the core, say, right, I'm actually going to heal this power, right beneath all the trainings, then all the abilities that you've got are going to go to the next level, and new things are going to come in without you needing to have an external training at that point.
Okay.
Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hilda. Susan, what would you like to ask? You need to unmute yourself, Susan. Unmute. Susan, we can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. I thought I did. Sorry about that. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Anne, for such an informative and clear presentation. Very succinct. I study neuroscience and have that as part of a course I teach at Columbia University. And I'm really interested. I've been on this quest to understand what you are teaching and how that aligns with neuroscience. And I was also thinking during your presentation that, and I know we have the ability, our brain is neuroplastic, and we can change the way that we operate. Though I'm wondering how it does sync with our initial reptilian response that our brain has evolved way beyond 2,000 years ago to be fearful, threatened by the other who's not of our tribe. And so I'm wondering how the Yin power may be able to shift that in some way.
What a great question. What great questions today. That is the challenge. It's because we are locked in with fear, and you're absolutely right. The way I would include that, the reptilian brain thing, is this very deep subconscious program, the same is safe, different is dangerous. That's what always comes in. So anything, all of that is better not to change, deeply ingrained on so many levels.
Yes.
And then because all the patriarchy stuff is locked in by fear, that's what makes it so difficult. That's why we've been so stuck. So that's why it needs a combination of reprogramming the subconscious and lifting the trauma and bringing in that state of being to harmonize it. And it's like when you can get enough of that balance in on that very deep power level, that is intrinsically going to feel safe to the system. So once you've got enough in, that your mind can say, oh, actually, that feels quite good. I'll have a bit more, I'll have a bit more. So it's a snowball effect. But getting that initial momentum and getting those initial fears under control, that's the challenge. That's basically my work with people, getting that part done. And because you're always kind of balancing all the things together to keep the fear under control and understand. But conscious awareness is hugely important, because the fear comes up, the witch wound triggers. I'm going to die for this. But if I then say, hang on a minute, when that happens, it's actually just the cage. It's actually ancestral trauma. It's not here and now. It's trying to control you. Are you going to let it win? So you can still feel it, but you can say, well, I know this response. It's not actual danger here and now. I can kind of shelve that. Some people don't have the strength to do that. Some do. And so, but the more you can slice away those things and bring in the balanced, harmonious energy, you kind of flip onto there's a tipping point where it becomes, it feels better and better and better and better. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. So we've got one more question from Francia, and then I think we'll have to let you go. But yeah, I hope you're okay to answer one more question, Anne.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh,
Go
thank
ahead,
you. Thank you very
Francia.
much. Hi, and thank you for choosing me. I have one question, and this is about the fear to succeed, actually. I've been trying since many years. I have an idea of a project I have. And now this month I started fully working on it. Still, when I have a meeting with my collaborator, sometimes I freeze because I'm afraid to, let's say, become famous. I'm afraid to succeed, and I don't know how to address that.
Right.
Because it doesn't mean that it will happen, right? But still, it blocks me completely.
Exactly. So what this is all about the this is a witch wound problem. So what your subconscious is saying, if I am seen to be powerful, if I'm out there on the world stage in some way, if I'm obviously you are going to be breaking a whole load of ancestral limits for what women used to have been limited by, because that's the case for all of us. So you're breaking a load of rules subconsciously, and the ancient trauma says, if I do this, I'm going to die for this. So this is a witch wound trauma, and this can block women in their tracks. And years ago, I used to train people in a lot of healing modalities, and there'd be women who had such passion and a mission to change the world, but then it came to that, right, now launch your business, now get online, now be interviewed, and they would just freak out, and they couldn't even take that step because their body was saying, their mind was saying, I'm going to die for this. So it means it's literally going into those subconscious layers, freeing yourself from that ancient trauma. And the gift audio that I'm going to share, that is in fact going to help you with that. If you wanted to go deeper and really address that, that's something that I could do one-to-one with you if you would like. So the thing to bear in mind is, it's not your fault. So many women struggle with this. And secondly, there is absolutely a solution. And it's not about changing who you are, and it's not about pushing harder or getting another training. It's about making it safe on that subconscious level for you to succeed without your subconscious saying, you're going to be punished for this.
Okay, thanks. And we've got one more question from Victoria. I said we'd finish now, but if we can do it quickly, we can just fit that in. Victoria, if you want to speak.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Victoria.
Nice to see you. Hi. This is just actually like more like a curiosity. So when you're talking about the many years ago, so I would like to understand, when in history did this patriarchy won over the world, right? So when did the yin and the yang were really balanced in history? So when this change happened, really?
Well, it's that's probably another lecture, but and it was over a period of time. But what we can say is that there was, in terms of the kind of Jewish Christian kind of heritage, about 1000 BC, that there was a big shift from honoring the sacred feminine to it becoming masculine, and then another quite a big shift. I can't remember exactly when it was, between I think the 6th and the 8th century BC, and it sort of began to come in at that point. So
yeah, because obviously other cultures have been more balanced before our. I mean, like
but at the same time, if you look at all the major religions, they are all pretty patriarchal. And all of Western culture is patriarchal. And there are very, very few places. So obviously I had to simplify to get the main point across. So it's a big history, but if you look at the big picture over the whole of the planet, it was a trend that happened, and it was kind of linked with sort of, if you start with the sort of hunter-gatherer kind of way of life, as soon as you then get into agricultural settlement, then ownership becomes important. And then a man is going to want to know that the woman he's with, that her children are his children, not somebody else's children. So then women, become owned, and you can see that then expands when we go into from like little settlements to sort of city culture, and it just all kind of grew from that, all along with the old religions being suppressed and the patriarchal religions coming in. So it's a huge subject, but the trends is what's important.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that question, Victoria. And thank you so much. This has been a really enlightening. I've known and worked with you for years, and still every time there's more, there's new. It's brilliant. So thank you so much for this. We'll end now, but I'm sure lots of people will want to get in touch with you and learn more and hopefully work with you, because I can absolutely say that working with Anne is completely game changing. And what she does, I have never met anybody else who can do this. So it is extraordinary. So on that note, I will say to everybody, thank you so much for being here. Please do come along to our next Mission Magic session, which is in about a month. I can't remember the date. And we'll have another wonderful woman talking about their mission. But for now, Dr. Anne Whitehouse, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Lucy, can I say